This is Teresa with My Crochet Obsession, and this tutorial is a corner-to-corner baby blanket. This corner-to-corner blanket is created by making corner-to-corner squares and joining them to another color square as you go, and each strip is a different color combination in order to create the gingham check pattern design. For my blanket, I used 28 total ounces of the Hobby Lobby Crafter's Secret Big Idea yarn in the color baby pink, hot rose, and white. To create the gingham pattern, I chose to make 7 squares in each strip. One strip has the alternating hot rose and baby pink. The next strip has white and baby pink. The blanket consists of 7 strips with 7 squares in each strip. Let's begin the blanket with a slip knot on our hook. I begin my corner-to-corner block stitch with a chain up of 5 so that my openings are as small as possible so that little fingers and little toes cannot get hung up in them. At the 3rd chain, I move my non-dominant hand up to that chain so that I know where to put my first double crochet. I double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook, and I go into the back bump. Double crochet into the 2nd chain, and double crochet into the 1st chain, and row 1 in block stitch corner to corner is complete. Obviously, it's one of those days, but you know, whenever I begin corner to corner, this is often the case. This first row is the most difficult, and then after that, things begin to run smoothly. Row 1 is complete. And now begins the pattern repeat. Now let's begin row 2. Chain up 5 again. Double crochet into the 3rd chain. It's also the 3rd chain from the hook. Double crochet into the 2nd chain. And double crochet into the 1st chain. Turn your work, and it doesn't matter whether you turn your work forward or back, but do it the same way each time. I'm accustomed to pulling it forward. And into the chain space from row 1, pull up a loop, and I slip stitch. Some people single crochet there, but there again, I slip stitch in order for this opening here to be as small as possible. And now chain up 2, which counts as a double crochet, and then 3 double crochet into the chain space from the previous row. And that completes row 2. Let's go to row 3. Chain 5. And 3 double crochet into the chain up, beginning with the 3rd chain from the hook. And double crochet into the 2nd chain. And double crochet into the 1st chain. Turn your work and slip stitch into the chain space from the previous row. Chain 2, which counts as a double crochet. I turn down that last stitch from the previous row because I have a tendency to snag it with my claw if I don't. And then the 3 double crochet in that chain space from the previous row and slip stitch into the next chain space. Chain 2, which counts as a double crochet, and 3 double crochet into the chain space from the previous row. Row 3 is complete. Repeat the pattern from the chain 5. Chain 5 again to begin a new row. Turn the work, slip stitch into the first chain space from the previous row, chain 2, 3 double crochet into the chain space, slip stitch into the next chain space, chain 2, and 3 double crochet into the chain space, slip stitch into the next chain space from the previous row, chain 2, and 3 double crochet. And that completes row 4. Now let's continue to increase as we're building rows and our corner to corner piece is getting larger. It's called the increase. Let's continue our increase with our pattern repeat beginning at the chain up of 5. And we'll chain up 5. Oops. Let me start that again. Chain up 5. Yarn over and double crochet into the third chain from the hook. It is the third chain in our chain up of 5. Double crochet into the second chain. And double crochet into the first chain. Turn the work, slip stitch into the first chain space from the previous row, chain 2, which counts as a double crochet. 3 double crochet into the chain space. And slip stitch into the next chain space from the previous row. Chain 2 counts as a double crochet. Double crochet 3 times into the same chain space. Slip stitch into the next chain space from the previous row, chain 2, which counts as a double crochet. Yarn over and 3 double crochet into the same chain space. Slip stitch into the next chain space from the previous row. Chain 2, which again counts as a double crochet. Yarn over and double crochet 3 into the same chain space. And that completes row 5. Continue to increase to row 6 using the pattern repeat. We will begin to decrease with row 7. Row 6 is complete. Now we will begin our decrease. And what a decrease means in corner to corner is that we are no longer going to continue to grow our piece to increase the size. We are going to decrease the rows to where our piece then comes up and meets again in the opposite corner and squares up. And this is the way we do that. This is one way to decrease, and it's the way I proceed with a decrease as long as my yarn is the same color. Chain 1 and turn your work, and skip the first stitch here because that is the chain. And into the second stitch, insert the hook and pull up a loop and slip stitch. Make sure it's the right tension and gauge of your hook, not too tight. Insert your hook into the next stitch and pull up a loop and slip stitch again. And this completes the decrease on this end of the row. From here, continue your pattern repeat until the end of the row, where you will once again decrease before progressing to the next row. Each row will begin and end with a decrease in order to finish this block into a perfect square. After we finish this square, we will join a new color and join a new block. I'll meet up with you there. Slip stitch into the next chain space. Now, we are decreasing. So in this row, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. We're not going to continue to go up on this block here as we would when we were increasing, because we are now going to slip stitch again and do our decrease stitch and begin our next row right here. So let's proceed. Chain 1, turn the work, and just as we did last time, we're going to skip this first stitch because that is our chain, and then slip stitch into the next stitch and slip stitch into the third stitch. And again, we go right back to corner 101 with a chain 2 and 3 double crochet into the chain space from the previous row. Continue the pattern repeat with decreases on each row until this block is completely squared. Once I have completed this square, I will join a new color and begin another square. I've arrived at the final block stitch in this corner to corner square, and this is the way that I end my squares. Turn your work. Slip stitch into the second stitch and slip stitch into the third stitch. Chain 1, pull up a loop, and clip your yarn. And this completes our first square of corner to corner crochet, and we have 11 rows in this block. Now we will proceed with our join and our color change in our baby blanket. We began in this corner and finished in this corner. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this is row 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now I'll continue to add my next color, which is the hot rose, and join to the block that we have just completed. And we're going to join our yarn at the opposite end. We started here, we ended here, and then go straight over to here and insert the hook into the top. You've got your chain here, and go into the top of that chain. It's actually the top of the double crochet. Insert your hook there under 2 loops. Loop your new color of yarn over your hook and pull it through the 2 loops that are on your hook. And then I yarn over both my working yarn and my yarn end of my new color and pull that through the loop on my hook. And this is how I attach my yarn. Now there are several different methods, and you choose the method that you most prefer. Once your yarn is attached, follow the pattern repeat for corner to corner, beginning with a chain up of 5. 3, 4, and 5, and then double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook, and double crochet into the 2nd chain, and double crochet into the 1st chain. This first step should look very familiar. It's basic corner to corner. And turn the work and connect in between the 2 rows. You're going to slip stitch to join this block in between the 2 rows of the previous block. And I go all the way through everything that's there into the actual row. Some people find a stitch here to go into. I prefer to just make it simple and just go all the way through that row. Now don't make this too tight, just snug enough. And now we will chain 2. This next stitch is actually a join, and we are creating the chain to which we will crochet our 3 double crochets. So you go ahead again and join in between the 2 rows of the previous block. Insert the hook and slip stitch to join. And our first double crochet is a chain up of 2. yarn over and turn the work. And then 3 double crochet into the chain space that we created with the join. Pull up some yarn. And slip stitch into the first available chain space from the previous row. Now, for the remainder of this square, it is the original pattern repeat 4 corner to corner, with the exception of the join, which is a very easy chain of 2 and then join to the previous square. Now, increase with a chain up of 5. 1, 2, 3. Move your finger up. Chain 2 more. Yarn over. Insert the hook into the 3rd chain from the hook and double crochet. Double crochet into the 2nd chain and double crochet into the 1st chain. Turn the work and slip stitch into the 1st chain space from the previous row. Continue the pattern repeat. And slip stitch to join to the previous block in between the 2 rows. Now we're going to chain 2 to create our join of our new color, and slip stitch, chain 2, yarn over, and 3 double crochet into the chain space join that we created. Continue the corner to corner pattern repeat to increase the rows, and I will join you again once it is time to begin our decrease for this square. And this is the end of row 6. This is where we will begin our decrease, exactly like we did in the previous block. Chain 1 and turn the work. Skip the 1st stitch, and in the 2nd stitch, slip stitch, and slip stitch into the 3rd stitch, and begin the pattern repeat. Chain 2 and 3 double crochet into the chain space. Please excuse all of the background noise. I'm having some work done here at the house today, and so I have a lot of competition on my audio. This should be very familiar to you by now. This is exactly what we did in the previous square. We will continue to decrease on each end of our rows until we have our 1 corner to corner block stitch and have completed the square. I will meet up with you there. Now to complete this block, I continue to decrease all the way to the end before I chain one, pull up a loop, and clip my yarn. It keeps all of the edges and all of the corners consistent that way. So pull up a loop, and I leave myself a nice generous loop. I will crochet over it at some point if I get that opportunity with my blocks. Okay, and this is the way the two blocks completed looks. Notice that in corner to corner, this is the wrong side facing up, and the way I know that is the wrong sides where we slip stitch to join forms V's, little V's. And on the front side facing, the joins are just one little bar. Now, the reason I bring that to your attention is because whenever I'm joining, I'm going to be mindful of where my front side and my back sides are, because that's going to determine which side I work from on my very first join. And the reason that we start on the reverse side is because on this particular row, whenever we are adding our yarn, we will be turning the work after the first chain up. So we begin from on the wrong side facing up. Notice also that in this block that now our our beginning is right here and our end is right here. We will always begin to join our new block on the opposite end of where we ended the block that we're going to join to. So this is the end of this block. So this is the corner that we will begin our new join in. From the way my color pattern is laid out, I will begin again with the light pink, and I will begin joining it right here in this corner. I will be joining in this manner until I have a total of 7 squares in this strip. Before I begin my continued joins, I'm going to take a stitch marker to indicate which side of my work is the wrong side, because I will be joining in this appropriate corner on the wrong side of the project. I will join up with you again once I have completed my 7 squares in this strip. I've completed all 7 blocks of my first strip of the pink checkered corner to corner block stitch join as you go. Oh, that's a mouthful. The reason I made a distinction about the stitch, this is the more traditional stitch that's used in corner to corner, although as I've said before, many different stitches can be used, made to and creating a crochet fabric that starts in the corner and advances on the diagonal and ends in the opposite corner. But this one is the more traditional, and it is called the block stitch. Now then, I have also in my 7 block strip of my 11 row, well actually it's a 6 row, but it becomes 11 because we count our rows in corner to corner 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then because we make a decrease, this is row 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. That's the way I'm referring to it, so don't get confused. But I also weaved in my ends. I don't like to wait to the end. On this particular piece, if you wait to the end, you've got at least 72 yarn ends, 2 for each block, and there's 36 blocks. Wait, more than that. 7 times 7. I'm going to have 49 blocks, so you're going to have more than 72. You're going to have 100 at least ends to weave in, and I don't like to wait till the end. Okay, another thing before we begin, my next colors, because I'm going in a checkered pattern, on my next rows, above the pastel pink, I will have my white yarn, and above my hot rose pink, I'm going to have the baby pink color. So that's how I will progress. Now, another thing to point out is I'm beginning with my work on the back or wrong side. I'm going to call it the back. There's no right and wrong. There's a back and a front to our corner to corner. This is the back side, and I put stitch markers to remind me where the back side is. And the way you know on your stitches, once again, I know I've said it before, but it bears repetition. The back side of our stitches where we join form a V. On the front side, they're just a bar. Okay? And I like to have all my back sides of stitches on the back and all my front sides on the front, but it's still a reversible blanket because, you know, we turn our work. All right, and my second stitch marker is where the blanket began. My very first block, which corner did I begin in? I have a stitch marker there, but I also leave my tail there as a kind of double insurance that I know where I started, because that's going to be important as we progress. You don't want to put strips on both sides necessary for this particular pattern. There might be a situation where that applies, but not on this blanket. Okay, to begin, a tutorial in the join as you go method for joining the second strip is necessary because the beginning construction of the blocks is different from now on for the remainder of the blanket. It is not difficult, it's just different. In my gingham check pattern, I will now begin using alternating white and the baby pink in order to complete the gingham pattern. For the remainder of the blanket, all rows and all remaining squares will always be joined in the lower right-hand corner. This will be more clear as we go forward. Let's begin with a slip knot on our hook. And the first thing we need to do is join our yarn. And I'm going to do that into the corner stitch. It's the chain. But I'm not going to go into the chain space the way we do when we're building our blocks. I'm actually going to go into a stitch and make sure that I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to attach my yarn the same way I always do, and I'm going to pull up the 2 loops, both the working yarn as well as my tail, for this very first attachment, because that secures it really, really well. And then I'm going to drop my tail, and I'm going to chain 2, only 2 here. And then I'm going to go back in between the 2 rows of my previous block that I'm joining to. And for me, I'm going to pull up the loop from the front to the back. As I've indicated to you, I want all of my front joins to look the same with the 1 post, and my back joins to be the V. So by pulling it in from the front, there is my V, and here is my bar. Okay? Now we continue this, and what we've done here with our join is we've created our chain that we attach our 3 double crochets to after our chain up. And each time that you begin to add another square in join as you go, you will begin in this manner for that first block stitch. This is important, so let me say it again. And each time that you begin to add another square in join as you go, you will begin in this manner for that first block stitch. So from here, we chain 2 and yarn over and turn the work, and 3 double crochet into the chain join up that we just created. And let's analyze what we've done and understand why our first stitch is like that. In corner to corner, the stitches alternate and whenever they're side by side. These stitches from the previous square are running horizontal, and the new block stitch that we've added for our next square in our join as I go, we created the chain into which the 3 double crochet go into that are vertical. So we have our horizontal stitch here and our vertical right next to it, just as we want in corner to corner. Then we also created a very clean join here. Now, some people will join to this stitch right here, but I don't like to do that because it causes an undulation in the join here, and I want my squares to be nice and straight. So that's why I do mine that way. Also, the way I pull my loop for this join from the back to the front as I'm looking at my work, if that's not important to you to have all your V-stitches on one side, then just join as normal. I do that because I want consistency in the way my crochet fabric looks. And one of the reasons I do that is because I do sell some of my work. And so I want it to look nice and consistent and professional. If it's not important to you, then skip that step. Just join as you normally do. And now we chain 5 to add our next block. So this is what I call just corner to corner 101. And by now, even if this is the first time that you've done a corner to corner project, I'm sure that you're familiar with this by now. And then we turn our work and slip stitch into the chain space from the previous row and chain 2 and 3 double crochet into that chain space. And we're going to join once again to our previous strip, and I'm going to be pulling in from what, as I look at my work, is the back. I say I'm going to, it's not going to participate with me, and slip stitch, chain 2, and we're creating another join. So once again, I'm going to pull in from what is the back of my work at this time, slip stitch, chain 2, turn the work, and around that join that we created, 3 double crochet. And then proceed with corner to corner 101 for the next block stitch.
Continue this pattern repeat to increase to your 6 rows. I will join up with you again when we come to the place where we will decrease with this square. Okay, now for this final join in row 6, we still go in between the 2 rows. So we're wrapping around that join from between, and we're in between the 2 blocks. I still want to pull up my loop from the front so that I have my post join on the front. Now here's where we will begin our decrease, and we decrease just as we have done in all the previous blocks with a chain of 1, and turn the work, skip a stitch, and slip stitch into the 2nd and the 3rd stitch, and chain 2,
and continue the corner to corner pattern repeat with decreases on the end of each row until you have completed this square. I will join you there. I'll meet you at the completion of this square, where we will then begin to join our next square. I've completed square number 1 of strip 2 of the gingham baby blanket. Now it is time to add the 2nd square in this strip, and it will be in the color of my baby pink. I will be joining my yarn in the same manner that I have joined, by looping the yarn over my hook and inserting it into the place where the yarn needs to be attached. And that is an important place to talk about at this stage of the blanket. The sequence for the join is to first join to the last block that I crocheted, which is the white block. And then the 2nd join will be to the previous strip. This will become more clear as we proceed. Let's begin.
And the way I do that is this join, this last join in row number 6, I insert the hook between the 2 squares with the slip knot on my hook, and I pull up the 2 loops and pull those 2 loops through my slip knot, and that is my join. Now I chain 2. Remember, I told you when we started the first block that from now to put the first block stitch on our squares will be done in this fashion. We are forming a join. I'm going to put one more chain so that it doesn't pull. And I'm going to be pulling this loop from the front to the back, and you do whichever way you've decided. Just be consistent. And I'm going to pull up a loop to slip stitch, and that is our join. And you see here that where this block is, the previous stitches are horizontal, and the blocks for our the stitches for our first join in our block stitch will be vertical, and that's exactly what we want. Now chain 2, yarn over and turn the work, and 3 double crochet into that chain, the join, the chain join that we created. Now we go back and we're going to make our join just like we always do in corner to corner 101 in between these first 2 rows in the previous square. Insert the hook, pull up a loop, and slip stitch. Chain 2. We are creating the join once again. Slip stitch. And now we've created one more join. Chain 2, yarn over, and turn the work. This is a little bit fiddly this morning. There we go. And 3 double crochet into that chain join that we created. and slip stitch into the previous row, the chain. Chain 2 and 3 double crochet. From now on, adding this block is exactly like the way we joined each block from row 1 and grew our piece to 7 blocks. But we're just joining on both sides. So for me, see, this is the back side of my work, and I needed to bring my loop up from the front. Again, this is optional. You may not be doing this. And chain 2. Join that chain to the previous block. Chain 2 again. Turn the work. And 3 double crochet into the join.
Follow the pattern repeat to complete this square. Once this square is completed, continue to join additional squares until this strip has a total of 7 strips. Continue the process of joining additional strips of 7 squares until you have a total of 7 strips. I'll join you again once I have completed the body of my blanket, and we will move forward with the border.
And I've completed the basic body, the foundation body of the baby blanket, and I'm now ready for my border. I always put some type of a border, or at least a minimal edging on a corner to corner blanket, because to me the edge just, some people quit right here, and that's okay, but to me it still looks like it's not quite finished. I just like borders, that's all there is to it. Now you can see that this is what I'm calling the front of the blanket, because all of the joins are a post, a straight post. Interesting, I learned something when I did this blanket, that I can, when I make this join, I can make it in a way that both sides are the same. And so in future blankets, I'm going to be making that join, and then both sides of the blanket will look like this post. But on this particular blanket, because I didn't know that yet, I have on, we have the joins that are, that look like the V-stitch. And that's pretty too. I like it. It adds interest. But I have all of the V-stitches on one side, and then all of my posts joins on the what I'm calling the front side. At this point in the blanket, as I begin to add my boundary, my border, I no longer need the stitch marker. That was only to tell me what was the back of the blanket, because each time I join a new block, I needed to be starting from the back. Well, that helped me the entire blanket, but I'm done with that now. I don't need it. I will be starting my border with a base round. In my border, I will be using all three colors that I used in this blanket, and I'm going to start with the darkest color and go from darkest to lightest. Now, to begin my base round for my border, which is very necessary in the corner to corner method, because the stitches are a cross hatch, they run both vertical and horizontal, your edge is not the same. You have a chain space on one cross hatch, the one running horizontal, and on the cross hatch running vertical, then you have double crochet stitches that you could go into the top of. If you just start your border into those stitches, your stitches are not consistent. They won't be the same space across. You'll also have a little opening right here. So I start my border with a base round, and this base round consists of single crochets and chains. I'm going to join my yarn by pulling up a loop, yarning over both my tail as well as my working yarn, and pulling through that loop. That is only a join, it does not count as a stitch. Chain 2, actually it counts as a single crochet. Chain 2 and single crochet into that in between those next two rows. We've been using this in between the rows for this entire blanket. We're going to continue to do so. And single crochet, chain 2 and single crochet between the row, chain 2 and single crochet between the row. Going to do this all the way around the blanket. Now,
When you reach the corner, you'll single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet into the same corner stitch. I'll join you in the first corner and demonstrate the corner stitch so it will be more clear.
I've started my base round of my border, and I'm to my first corner. So I wanted to address that. So first of all, to get to the corner, we're going to continue with our chain 2 and single crochet right into that corner stitch. Make sure to get under 2 loops so that that stitch doesn't pull open, and single crochet, chain 2 and single crochet again into that same stitch. We need that for the corner for the following rounds. And then we continue with our pattern repeat, chain 2 and single crochet, chain 2 and single crochet all the way around. And I'll meet up with you where we began. Okay, I've made it all the way around with my base round for my border, and I'm at my last chain 2, and I'm going to slip stitch to join into the top of where I joined the yarn, the stitch that counted as the first single crochet. Now I'm going to be crocheting over the yarn end, but I'm going to go into that next chain space, that chain space of 2, and single crochet. I'm going to put 3 single crochet in each chain space. 3 single crochet all the way around. Even in the corners, I'm going to put 3 single crochet. I'm going to drop my yarn in there. I'm only going to crochet over it with 3 single crochet, and now 3 single crochet in each of the chain spaces of the base round. Over to the next one, 3 single crochet. And that is the pattern repeat all the way around, even in the corner, 3 single crochet. I'll meet up with you where we started.
I've completed the first round of single crochet of my border. I'll pull up a loop and clip my yarn.
And to do an invisible join, I've done this before, but I'm going to do it again. Here, the invisible join is completed with the yarn needle. And I come into underneath the first stitch that you put in underneath the 2 loops. And you want to pull it to where this loop here is the same size as the stitch that you did with your crochet hook. And then back into the top of that last stitch that you made, into the top of it, right there. And I go down all the way through that stitch. And then whenever you pull the yarn, make sure and not pinch the stitch. You want that loop to join to be the same size as the previous stitches. And I pulled mine all the way through and unthreaded my needle. So we just thread it again. I get to have a do-over. All right. And then I come back to weave in that yarn in, and I go right back into my base round and the first round. Don't pull it too tight. Up again. That indicates to me I really didn't leave that yarn end long enough. If it keeps undoing like that, and then I go back through one more time, making sure to weave through the fibers of the yarn, not just going underneath the stitches, but go into the fibers, and then one more time. Again, I'm wiggling the needle around to actually purposely snag the fibers, and then pull it all the way through, and that is an invisible join. And for the baby pink, I don't like to join in exactly the same stitch as the previous join, so I'm going to move over just a bit, maybe 1 stitch, and I'm going to make my join exactly the same way by pulling up a loop, and I'm going to leave a nice long tail because I want to weave that in, and I'm going to crochet over it also. So, and then I'm going to yarn over with both my working yarn as well as my tail, and I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to drop the tail, and I'm going to chain 1 more, because I'm going to come in on this second row with my baby pink, with I'm going to pull that just a bit. I'm going to come in with a half double crochet, so I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to half double crochet right back into that same stitch. I'm not counting that chain up as my stitch. Okay, and I'm going to half double crochet into the top of the single crochets from the previous row, round, all the way around, and in the corners 3 half double crochet, 1 in each of the single crochets from the previous round. Okay, and that is round 2. Half double crochet in the top of each single crochet from the previous round.
Continue that pattern repeat, and I will join you in the corner to demonstrate how we address the corners on this half double crochet round.
I'm coming up on my first corner in my half double crochet, and I wanted to make sure I was clear on how to do this. I really wasn't that specific in the previous instructions. The 3 half double crochet go into the second single crochet in the corner from the previous round. So I'm in that second stitch, going to put 3 half double crochet. And then return right back to 1 half double crochet in the top of each single crochet from the previous round.
Continue the pattern repeat and I will join you where we begin.
Now I've made my way around the blanket with my base round row and my 2 rounds of a single crochet and then half double crochet on the second one. I've joined my yarn with a invisible joint, and I'm going to come in with a third color. But let me point out, this is an adorable blanket just like this. This border, this looks completely finished. And in fact, after the first round of single crochet would be a nice stopping point too. If you're more of a minimalist, or perhaps you don't even have any more yarn left, then just stop. You don't have to add this third round. But I'm going to, because it's probably going to end up being a little girl's blanket, I'm going to come in with a little bit of a scallop on this last row in my white yarn. I'm going to attach my yarn. I'm going to come up where the join for the base round was, come up to that stitch and move over 1 stitch to the left, and attach my yarn the way I always do. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the 2 plies of yarn, both the yarn end and the working yarn, drop the tail and chain 1, which will count as a single crochet. And we're not going to have another single crochet, but we need to attach that yarn. All right, now we're going to yarn over and skip the next 2 stitches. No, into the next stitch, half double crochet. Into that same stitch, double crochet. 2 times, 2 double crochet. And another half double crochet. Okay? So you have 4 stitches. After your join, you have 4 stitches in the next stitch. Half double, 2 doubles, and another half double. Yarn over, and the next stitch is a half double crochet. Let me move this yarn tail so we can see what we're doing here. Half double crochet, but you're going to skip 2 stitches. 1, 2, go into that center stitch with a half double crochet. 2 double crochet. And a half double crochet. Now oftentimes with a shell stitch, we will have right here somewhere in one of these stitches, we will have a single crochet or a slip stitch, but not in this border that I'm doing today. We're not going to do that. You just have a little space there. Okay, yarn over again, skip 2 into that 3rd stitch from the last stitch, pull up a loop and half double crochet. 2 double crochet, and a half double crochet into that same stitch. Yarn over, skip 2 stitches into the 3rd stitch, half double crochet, 2 double crochet, and another half double crochet to complete the shell. And that is your pattern repeat for this row. I will join you in a few moments when we get to the corner. I'm progressing with my mini scallop on my baby blanket, the third and last row of this baby blanket. As I'm coming up to the corner, we have our 3 half double crochets that are in the corner, and in the 3 half double crochets, then we have 2 loops in that corner. This loop here is actually, we're not counting it, we're counting these 2. We're going to use both of those to go around the corner. And first we will skip 2 stitches, and in that 3rd stitch, half double crochet, and then 2 double crochets, and in the next stitch 2 double crochets, and a half double crochet. And that completes our scallop to come around the corner. And then the next thing is to skip 2 stitches and go right back into the pattern repeat of half double crochet, 2 double crochet, and half double crochet. So that's how you will address your corners, and the pattern repeat remains the same, and all the corners are exactly the same. And that's the way it looks.
And there you have it, the Pink Girl Power Baby Blanket. I have so enjoyed bringing you this tutorial. Having found value in this tutorial, please subscribe and activate the notification bell so you'll know when I put up a weekly tutorial. And until I see you again, keep calm and crochet on.